Good evening. In the news tonight, Superintendent of Public Instruction Sue Ellen Reed says moving Indiana's I-STEP test to the spring is a bad idea. And President Bush is beginning the first of 3 days traveling to promote his State of the Union agenda.
In sports, the South Knox Lady Spartans stunned county rival Vincennes-Lincoln last night. And former Lincoln boys basketball coach Gene Miller returns to Alice Arena tonight to face his former team.
Newscenter 22 is next. Bucking the governor, State Superintendent of Public Instruction Sue Ellen Reed, a fellow Republican, said today that Indiana shouldn't move its statewide testing to the spring because it would cost too much. Republicans, including Governor Daniels, have pushed for the I-STEP test to be moved to the spring. They say students know more after a full year of learning. But Reed said it would cost the state $45 million to move the test. She says that money would be better spent on full-day kindergarten or other educational programs. House lawmakers could vote today on a bill to move the I-STEP to the spring. Democrats oppose the measure. House Republicans tweaked details of the governor's highway plan Tuesday in an effort to secure enough GOP support to keep the bill alive without any Democratic votes. The changes include a 10-year freeze on the price residents who live along the Indiana Toll Road pay for driving on the highway. The amendment also created Regional Development Authority for Elkhart, Steuben, and LaGrange counties to oversee and fund economic development projects. Governor Mitch Daniels' plan would lease the toll road to a private venture for nearly $4 billion for 75 years. Republicans who control the House 52-48 must pass the plan by midnight Thursday to advance it to the Senate. Democrats say leasing such a major asset to a private company is a bad financial deal in the long run. Legislation aimed at simplifying Indiana's gun license renewal process passed the Senate 49-1 Tuesday. Senate Bill 54 specifies that persons and agencies engaged in issuing handgun licenses should process applications in a timely fashion. It also would allow handgun license renewals to be done electronically and would not require fingerprints for the renewals if the applicant's fingerprints are still on file from the initial licensing. The bill was co-authorized by State Senator Lyndall Hume of Princeton. The Indiana Department of Correction is taking steps to prevent suicides after the deaths of 3 inmates at state prisons this month. The department is planning a day-long summit March 1st in Indianapolis to discuss ways to deter suicides and help those who witness them. State Prisons Commissioner David Donahue says deaths affect not only the families of the deceased prisoners, but also other inmates and prison staff who might have grown to know them. Many natural gas customers across the state could soon see a drop in their monthly heating bills. Vectren Corporation plans to lower customer charges by about 15% for February because the warmer than usual winter has eased price hikes from suppliers. Evansville-based Vectren filed a request yesterday with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission for the price cuts. The request comes just a few months after Vectren and other gas companies predicted home heating costs would rise about 43% this winter. Vectren projects a typical customer in its service area across southern and central Indiana will see a $28 savings for a February bill. Charges are pending against an Oaktown man for breaking into a city-owned truck in the parking lot of Good Samaritan Hospital in Vincennes. A purse belonging to a city employee and a $2,500 radio owned by the city were stolen. Credit cards taken in the break-in were used to make purchases at several locations around the city. Police tracked down 21-year-old James Winemiller, who they say admitted to the theft and using the stolen credit cards. Police recovered the portable radio and several $100s worth of goods purchased with the stolen cards. The case was turned over to the Knox County prosecutor for review and possible charges. Meanwhile, police say there has been an increase in vehicle break-ins and remind the public to report any suspicious activity. Republican 8th District U.S. Representative John Hostetler is praising President Bush for addressing a number of critical issues during his State of the Union address Tuesday night. Hostetler says he's pleased with the president's calls for greater enforcement of America's immigration laws and stronger border security measures. However, he says he disagrees with the president's call for a guest worker program, citing the losses of American jobs. He says this type of program would be disastrous for American workers. He says American wages are already depressed and American workers have already been displaced in large numbers as a result of the 6 million illegal aliens presently working in the United States. Indiana Senator Evan Bayh says he hopes to see actions to back up President Bush's words. During his speech, Bush mentioned improving on issues such as health care, terrorism, and the nation's dependence on oil. But Bayh says too often Washington doesn't follow up on its plans. He also says he's concerned with cutting the federal debt. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Richard Lugar says he agrees with many of the issues Bush brought up in his speech. Lugar says he is already taking steps to help decrease the U.S. oil dependence by looking into the development of homegrown sources of energy. Still to come on Newscenter 22, President Bush left Washington today on a 3-day mission to sell proposals outlined last night in a State of the Union address. And congressional investigators say there was no clear chain of command to respond to Hurricane Katrina. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, who is America's best couple?
Love this. The gowns, the glitter, the gowns.
Who won America's best challenge tonight, ladies and gentlemen?
Ballroom's back. Where it all started. America's Ballroom Challenge. Watch it on PBS.
President Bush today began the first of 3 days traveling to promote his State of the Union agenda. The first stop was in Tennessee at the Grand Ole Opry, where he asked for support for his health care, energy, budget, and education plans. The president used his State of the Union speech to defend some of his administration's more controversial policies. He also used his speech to help unite the country. Suzanne Malvo reports.
This year, President Bush struck a noticeably conciliatory tone, beginning with the recognition of the passing of a civil rights icon.
We are grateful for the good life of Coretta Scott King.
Then offering an olive branch to the Democrats.
We must act in a spirit of goodwill and respect for one another, and I will do my part. Tonight, the state of our union is strong, and together we will make it stronger.
But the gloves quickly came off, the president playing to what polls consistently show is his greatest strength, national security. Mr. Bush aggressively defended his administration's Iraq policy, refusing to bring U.S. troops home prematurely. And he slammed his critics for not having an alternative.
Hindsight alone is not wisdom, and second guessing is not a strategy.
He defended his controversial domestic spying program as essential to protecting the country.
If there are people inside our country who are talking with al-Qaeda, we want to know about it.
For those who thought the commander-in-chief was just a little bit defensive,
we remain on the offensive against terror networks, on the offensive in Afghanistan, on the offensive in Iraq.
To prove the point, the president issued stern warnings to terrorists and dangerous regimes overseas.
And the nations of the world must not permit the Iranian regime to gain nuclear weapons.
On the domestic front, the president vowed to make Americans more competitive by offering initiatives to train teachers, ease health care costs, and support research for technology. And in an ironic twist, the former Texas oil man introduced his plan to support alternative sources of energy this way.
America is addicted to oil, which is often imported from unstable parts of the world. The best way to break this addiction is through technology.
And despite the president's message,
a hopeful society, a hopeful society, a hopeful society.
Congress was clearly divided.
Congress did not act last year on my proposal to save Social Security.
When Mr. Bush acknowledged the centerpiece of his agenda last year, reforming Social Security, had failed, he was interrupted with wild applause from the Democrats. But Republicans took to their feet when he expressed resolve.
Yet the rising cost of entitlements is a problem that is not going away.
Now the president goes on the road to sell his State of the Union initiatives. His first stop, Nashville, Tennessee. Suzanne Malvo, CNN, the White House.
President Bush wants to promote ideas for dealing with the high cost of health care. But should one idea already in place be sent back to the drawing board? Chris Lawrence has more.
Democrats aren't the only ones pressuring the president for a change. The AARP initially endorsed the Medicare program, but now it and other senior advocates say it needs to be fixed.
There's been a lot of problems with the system.
Susan Haley helps seniors in San Francisco. She says pharmacists can't verify what plan patients are assigned to, and too many poor people who used to get drugs at a discount now face higher copays.
And they're unable to afford it. So they're unable to afford the medication, so they just walk away with nothing.
Like this woman. She's 71 years old, her husband 73. Between them, they're supposed to take 11 medications, but now they can't afford them all.
I wasn't able to get my medicine for my cholesterol because it's expensive, and he wasn't able to get the Flomax for his prostate.
The plan was supposed to make it easier for seniors like Felicissima Fortuno.
But now, I have to have a share of cost with my medicine. Then I have to pay the premium. So how could that be so easier?
They get Social Security, but it isn't much. So even an extra $50 or $60 means they sometimes have to share their medicine.
I try to borrow from his, or I just cut it into half so that it will last longer.
And that's not what the doctor ordered.
Congressman Bill Young of Florida is hopping mad that his wife was ejected from last night's presidential speech for wearing a T-shirt urging support for U.S. troops. Standing in the well of the House chamber, Young held up the T-shirt which read, "Support the troops, defending our freedom." Young says his wife was told she was removed because she was a protester. Young's wife told St. Petersburg Times that she responded to that by saying, "Then you are an idiot." A spokeswoman for the U.S. Capitol Police says Beverly Young left on her own accord and wasn't ejected. War opponent Cindy Sheehan was also evicted for wearing a T-shirt opposed to the war. President Bush's State of the Union speech has mixed reviews overseas. Iran's president rejects Bush's picture of his country as repressive and calls the U.S. a hollow superpower. In London, a foreign policy expert says Europeans find it amazing Bush would push to cut oil use. President Bush is raising the pressure on Hamas. Bush tells the Associated Press that a Palestinian state can't be created unless a Hamas-led government says it no longer wants to destroy Israel. 8 people are dead and more than 50 others wounded after a bombing Wednesday morning in Baghdad. A police chief says a man placed a bag full of explosives near a cart that sold tea to construction workers as they waited for daily jobs. Victims didn't suspect the man because the workers used similar bags to carry their food. Officials initially called it a suicide bombing, but aren't sure if the attacker himself was killed or even wounded. The crowded intersection near a Sunni Muslim mosque, but there was no security forces in the area, and it's not clear why the workers were targeted. ABC has announced that Charles Gibson and Diane Sawyer will fill in for their colleague Bob Woodruff, who is injured in Iraq. They'll take turns as partners to Elizabeth Vargas, who became co-anchor with Woodruff on World News Tonight last month. Meanwhile, his brother tells ABC that Woodruff is moving his arms and legs and tried to open his eyes. Woodruff is being slowly brought out of sedation at a Navy hospital in Maryland. He arrived there last night. Woodruff and cameraman Doug Wvut were hit by a roadside bomb while filming in Iraq. Israeli forces have cleared a settlement in the West Bank after violent day-long clashes left more than 160 people injured. Jewish settlers battled with police during the operation to clear 9 houses in the Amona hilltop community. The homes are now rubble. Dozens of arrests were made. Congressional investigators say there was no clear chain of command to respond to Hurricane Katrina, and there still isn't one. A report released today says Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff or another top official should have been central to the response. A Homeland Security Department spokesman calls the report premature and unprofessional. A new, almost seductive computer worm is burrowing through the internet, threatening to destroy files on PCs worldwide. Daniel Seberg reports.
It's the oldest trick on the screen. Just promise sex, sexy pictures, or schoolgirl fantasies gone bad, and watch the mouse clicks all over the globe.
There are a lot of people who are going to be very unhappy on the 3rd of February. This virus will wipe out all their word processing documents, all their pictures, all of their worksheets.
Computer security companies like Internet Security Systems report the Kama Sutra worm has been spreading since January 16th in emails with subject lines like hot movie, crazy illegal sex, and give me a kiss. But when users clicked the attachments on those emails, they didn't get any dirty pictures. They did unknowingly infect their computers. The malicious code burrows deep within the Windows operating system, and on Friday, the worm goes to work. It will overwrite and corrupt spreadsheets, family pictures, and financial statements. Just about everything. The good news, there's still time to fix things.
From a security standpoint, users should definitely have some type of antivirus software on there. They should have some type of intrusion prevention, which basically protects them from worms, self-propagating worms, which antivirus can't protect you against. And there are some free applications out there as well that allow you to scan your computer for spyware, for the zombie type of softwares that have been installed on machines.
And as an important form of insurance, now is a very good time to back up your most valuable computer files on a CD or a DVD so this worm doesn't leave holes that can't be filled. Daniel Seberg, CNN, Atlanta.
Federal authorities say a grand jury has indicted 19 people for allegedly using the internet to pirate more than $6.5 million in copyrighted computer software, games, and movies. U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald says the defendants are charged in a 15-count indictment that was returned late yesterday by a federal grand jury in Chicago. Fitzgerald says the charges stem from an undercover investigation of the group that took place in Chicago, Charlotte, North Carolina, and San Jose, California. He says that from 1993 up until last summer, the group allegedly operated as a source for thousands of pirated works, with more than 19,000 gigabytes on one server alone. That's equal to 23,000 CD-ROMs. Still to come on Newscenter 22, rain returns to the forecast. Alan Schaefer will have the details when Newscenter 22 continues.
Tune in to WVUT this Wednesday night. At 8, it's America's Ballroom Challenge. 24 ballroom dance couples face off to find out who has the grace, style, and talent to earn the title America's Best. Then stay tuned for African American Lives at 9. This fascinating two-part documentary series relates the genealogical stories of prominent Black Americans. The journey begins with stories from T.D. Jakes, Quincy Jones, Chris Tucker, and Oprah Winfrey. Wednesday night on WVUT.
Well, it's still pretty nice out, but Alan, should we expect to get our umbrellas out for tomorrow?
It was a pretty nice day today. We do have some rain on the way. Good evening, everyone. It was a pretty windy day out today, but overall pretty nice. We have sunny skies and 59 degrees. The wind is southwest at 19 miles per hour. The humidity is at 42%, and the barometric pressure is at 29.76 and rising. Some temperatures around the area. We have Petersburg at 57 and cloudy skies. Washington has cloudy skies and at 58. Bridgeport has sunny skies and 59 degrees. And Summer, Illinois has cloudy skies and is at 60 degrees. Some temperatures around the nation. Much of the southern United States has some pretty mild temperatures, with temperatures ranging in the 50s and 60s. Much of the northern United States has pretty chilly today, with highs only in 25 in Wisconsin. As we move to the frontal map, we'll see this area of high pressure bringing beautiful weather to much of the southern United States. While we shared with that weather today, we do have a change on the way. As this cold front approaches our area for tomorrow, it will cool us down just a little bit and for a lot for the weekend. This area of low pressure down here will continue to push its way towards the east, bringing moist air from the south into our area and giving us a 45% chance of rain tomorrow and probably a 35% chance of snow on Saturday. Let's take a look at your forecast. Tonight, partly cloudy, a low of 39. Tomorrow, rain and a high of 51. Tomorrow night, rain and a low of 39. For Friday, we have cloudy skies with a high of 50 and a low of 29. And for Saturday, we have that 30% chance of snow, not much accumulation though, with a high of 34 and a low of 23. And for Sunday, it's going to be sunny with chilly skies at 36 and a low of 22. And Amy, that's a look at weather.
Thank you, Alan. Still to come on Newscenter 22, Kurt Maddox will have highlights from last night's South Knox-Vincennes-Lincoln girls basketball game, plus the rest of the day in sports.
Next time on African American Lives, 9 extraordinary people begin a journey to discover their roots.
This is your family tree. Wow, it was no joke, man.
Inspiring and startling details about their families are revealed.
He is the first person in your family to own land.
That's amazing, man. I wasn't even allowed in the house to sleep.
African American Lives.
Spartans top Alice's. Good evening, everyone. For TV 22 Sports, I'm Kurt Maddox. The Vincennes-Lincoln Lady Alices were unable to buy a bucket in the second half and ended up losing to county rival South Knox 42-27 at the Spartan Gym. Jill Ballinger has the details.
Scored the first 17 points of the fourth quarter to turn a 1-point third quarter lead into an 18-point advantage before the Alices would finally score with 56 seconds remaining in the contest.
There for a while in the second quarter or the third quarter, I didn't know if anybody was going to score, and then Amanda Carter was able to knock down a three, and Courtney Marshall followed that up with a three-pointer, and again that just seemed to get the momentum going in our way.
I thought we had lots of wide open looks, and three-point shots, something you got to be able to knock down when you're in high school, and we just weren't able to get them to fall in the second half.
The Spartans rode the free throw line to the victory, outscoring the Alices by 15 points. South Knox was good on 20 of 28 attempts, while Lincoln was 5 of 8 from the charity stripe. Courtney Marchino was a lone double-figure scorer in the game with 13 points, including 8 of 9 from the foul line. Lindsay Rump, Tara Knighty, and Hannah Doss all scored 6 points apiece for the Alices. South Knox improves to 8-11 overall with the win, while Lincoln drops to 10-9. Both teams close out their regular season on the road. The Spartans play at Tecumseh Thursday, while the Alices play at Evansville Central. Reporting for TV 22 Sports, I'm Joe Ballinger.
At North Knox, the Lady Warriors improved to 8-0 in the Blue Chip Conference by defeating Northeast Du Bois 59-29. Megan Miller tallied 16 points and McKenna Williams added 15 as the Warriors improved to 17-4 overall. Elsewhere, Vincennes-Reveille lost to North Davies 43-22. Allison Frederick led the Lady Patriots with 9 points and 10 rebounds. Tonight's boys' high school schedule is highlighted by third-ranked Vincennes-Lincoln hosting Washington. The game pits former Lincoln coach Gene Miller against his former player and assistant coach Steve Combs. More importantly, a Lincoln victory would assure the Alices of at least a share of the conference title, with one league game remaining against Mount Carmel. The Vincennes University Trailblazers fell behind early and ended up losing to Southeastern Iowa 74-52 last night at Burlington, Iowa. The Blazers were unable to muster any kind of offensive threat and trailed 35-18 at halftime. No one for VU scored in double figures. Terrence Carter scored a game-high 25 points for the host Blackhawks, who improved to 10-14 with the win. VU stays on the road for its next game Friday afternoon when they take on Hagerstown, Maryland in the opening round of the Allegheny Classic. Tip-off is at 1 o'clock. Dee Brown and Rich McBride scored 16 points each as number 6 Illinois beat Wisconsin 66-51 last night. It was Illinois' 4th straight victory over the Badgers. Wisconsin has now lost 4 of their last 5. With the win over the Badgers, Illinois took sole possession of first place in the Big Ten. The Fighting Illini are now half a game ahead of Michigan and Iowa. Illinois led at halftime against Wisconsin 34-28. Indiana coach Mike Davis is shaking up his starting lineup for tonight's Big Ten Conference matchup against Northwestern at Assembly Hall. Davis says senior Marshall Strickland, who has started all season at shooting guard, will move to the point in place of Lewis Monroe. Robert Vaden moves from power forward to shooting guard, and reserve Roderick Wilmot will start at the small forward spot. Davis says senior Marco Killingsworth will play inside along with Sean Klein or Ben Allen. The Hoosiers will be looking to snap a 2-game losing slump against the Wildcats. Tip-off is set for 8 o'clock. In the NBA last night, Gilbert Arenas scored 20 points to lead the Washington Wizards to an 84-79 victory over the Indiana Pacers. The game marked the Pacers' 6th straight loss in a mostly ineffective debut for Peja Stojakovic. He scored 17 points on 4 for 10 shooting and only shot 1 for 6 from the three-point range. It doesn't get any better for Indiana as they host the Los Angeles Lakers and their one-man scoring machine, Kobe Bryant, tonight at Conseco Fieldhouse. Speaking of the Lakers, they were in New York last night to play the Knicks. Kobe Bryant went off for 40 points as LA routed the Knicks 130-97. Bryant averaged just over 43 points a game for the month of January, joining Wilt Chamberlain as the only NBA players to do that feat more than once. Chants of MVP rained down from Madison Square Garden as Knicks fans saluted Bryant after he concluded one of the all-time great months in league history. If the actual Super Bowl is played as cautiously as Media Day, look for a rather dull game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Seattle Seahawks. Neither team gave each other much bulletin board material for Sunday's game. One of the more outspoken Steelers is linebacker Joey Porter. But yesterday he refused to give the media horde anything special. One reason is Porter says Coach Bill Cowher addressed the team about keeping its comments tame. Pittsburgh remains a 4-point favorite to hoist the Lombardi Trophy following Sunday's championship game. The NFL will kick in $20 million to the expected $140 million it will cost to repair the New Orleans Superdome. The donation comes at behest of Saints owner Tom Benson. Charlie Weiss has followed his successful debut season at Notre Dame with impressive results with the school's next recruiting class. Among the new players is offensive lineman Sam Young from Florida. Experts consider the 300-pounder one of the top 20 in the country and a jewel of Notre Dame's class. And Amy, that's a look at sports.
Thanks, Kurt. Still to come on Newscenter 22, a Greyhound bus driver is in trouble with the law today for using buses to smuggle drugs. Stay with us.
Tuesday on Frontline. These women have been torn from their lives, taken from their families, and sold into slavery. They are victims of a multi-billion-dollar international business that traffics an estimated 500,000 women a year. Frontline goes undercover to tell the tragic story of the sex trade. Tuesday at 9, only on PBS.
A Greyhound bus driver admits he used buses while he was off duty to shuttle cocaine back and forth between Texas and Tennessee. Christopher Winford faces up to 30 years in prison at his sentencing in federal court in Knoxville, May 8th. He could get 10 years for conspiracy and 20 for money laundering. Authorities say one of Winford's alleged buyers tipped him off to the cocaine runs. Prosecutors say for over 3 years, the 33-year-old driver checked out buses in Memphis, Tennessee, where he lived, and drove them to Texas to pick up the drugs. Prosecutors say he shuttled more than 300 pounds of cocaine and collected about $2.5 million. And that's all for this evening. Join us again tomorrow. For Alan Schaefer and Kurt Maddox, I'm Amy Reed. Good night.